So what we're going to do now is we're going to invite our panelists to come back up, all three. I'm going to introduce you to the founders of Rising Scholars, three of the most remarkable students I've ever come across. The first is Adrian Vasquez. Scott referenced him in his talk. Irene Sotelo. And Joe Luis Hernandez. So we have a little extra time, and I would ask the founders of Rising Scholars to say a bit about themselves, briefly, and then we're going to take some questions from you. And you can ask a panelist or one of our founders. And before I do that, I want to give a shout out to the Yerba Mate Company, who is here today. They are the self-distributor of Guayaki brand Yerba Mate. It's a company that has dedicated itself to going above and beyond. When you support their shade-grown Yerba Mate, you are making a statement that you care about the environment. And you care about people as they work on giving 10,000 living wage jobs to system-affected individuals. And that's awesome. Really what you're doing is you're supporting a second chance for people. And I think the sort of theme of this panel and the theme of this event that I'd like to sort of just clarify is that, look, we have value, right? The people who have been inside and the people who are directly impacted by the system, we have a lot of value. And the way to, as Gary mentioned, solve these problems is to draw on the folks in this room who have been system affected, right? We're good at things. We have tons of qualities that ought to be exploited, and we ought to have a second chance to sort of make sure that we do the right thing. Anyway, first, Joe Luis Hernandez.
So my name is Joe Luis Hernandez, and I'm a current graduate student here in our Master's in Counseling and Student Development in Higher Education. I am in my second year, about to go into my third year. I'm about to start my thesis. I was incarcerated when I was 19, when I was 20, back when I was still trying to do bad shit. And but for me, education was my last house on the block because I didn't think because of my felonies that I'd get any other type of job. And right now what I currently do is I work at Rio Hondo College and I work at Mount San Antonio College. And Rio Hondo College as a college has invested in me as a professional and has taught me how to develop a program, how to, they've given me hope where my vice president tells me that one day I can be vice president of a community college. And so that's what my new goal is.
Hi, my name is Irene Sotelo. I'm a student here at Cal State Long Beach. I'm getting ready to graduate in the sociology department, and I just got accepted into the master's program for 3 years, so I'll be here for another 3 years. I've been also formerly incarcerated, but my time started a little later than everybody else's. But it's never too late to get your education going. And I hope to help those who didn't get the help that I needed when I was growing up, and start those programs to guide people into education the right way, and hopefully to open up like a pipeline from the jails to the community colleges, and from the community colleges here to the university.
My name is Adrian Vasquez. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Danny.
Hey, come on, man.
I have a machete. My name's Danny Trejo. I'm a coordinator for client activities for Western Pacific Rehab MedCorp, and I'm also an actor, and I'm an activist for autistic children.
First of all, my name is Adrian Vasquez. I'd like to give a big shout out to Scott Budnick and Danny Trejo for being here. Gary Tyler as well. This to me is like a dream come true, to be able to get people who are activists, people who are empowering us, and people who are in this movement. I was formerly incarcerated. I spent 20 years behind bars when I was 19 years old. Prior to coming into imprisonment, I was actually a Cal State Long Beach student. At that time, I was a criminal justice and business administration major. Ironically, I wanted to be a DEA federal agent. Go figure. Yeah. Things have its twists and turns in life, and here I am now. I'm actually walking this semester, officially graduating in the fall, and applying to law school in the fall. One of the most important things I believe that is being empowered by people who believe in you, Like Scott, I owe you a lot of things, bro, especially being my friend and my brother, bro. Love you. And people who are here, I'd like to thank each and every one of you. Thank you.
Yeah. Along those lines, I'd like to thank the president for making this possible, President Connolly. She helped us out bringing these guests here. And I also want to just talk briefly about what Rising Scholars did between last year and this year. We successfully secured some seed funding from City of Long Beach, the innovation team, and we started to, with the help of Pastor Kyle, give me a wave here. We ran a little space over at his church, and what we do really is we help folks in the community who are system impacted or formerly incarcerated figure out how to navigate the pathway to school. We call it the Rising Scholars Education Lab, and with the help of the I-Team, we've been doing it. We've had one, we're gonna start doing it monthly, and we're really excited about the effort. So just to give you a little bit of update of what we're doing. So, anyone have any questions for our panelists? Yes, ma'am.
Who's your brother? Oh, I love David Ramirez. That's the homie.
Monty. Monty.
My question is for both Danny and Scott, or actually for the whole panel. So Danny, you being I'm a certified alcohol and drug counselor also, as well, so I commend you on that. I'm not former recovering substance abuser, but as being a former substance abuser and in trend with cannabis being legal now, we
Mic check, mic check.
run higher education.
Mic check.
Thank you. Me taking a leave from my grad program over at Dominguez to concentrate on the cannabis industry and the opportunities for formerly incarcerated and the entrepreneur program. I'm actually helping pass legislation, not just in California. I mean, we're the leader in everything, including criminal justice reform, but with the cannabis and the opportunities, a lot of us went to prison for not just cannabis, but other substances. But cannabis being the way to go. I mean, look at California and Colorado. But the entrepreneurial aspect, the education, how do you feel about that? I mean, you had made a comment, I think you said something about, I forgot what it is. I'm seasoned now. I don't like to say old, but I'm seasoned now. I forgot what you said, but it was...
I said, one of the things that I honestly feel is that insanity is
That was the word, yeah.
doing the same thing, expecting different results. And I honestly believe whether they completely legalize cannabis or not, doesn't matter. The people that aren't going to smoke it aren't going to smoke it. The people that are. You know, but I'm saying that if somebody has already been in prison and has already went down a drug path, well, you know, you're starting all over. It's like, wait a minute, it's like, what are we gonna do? It's like kind of like an alcoholic, well, I'm just gonna drink a little. You know, there's no such thing. It's like, it's no such thing as once you're an alcoholic, controlling your drinking, that's been proven, you know. So I honestly don't believe that somebody that went to prison for drugs can like stay smoking just weed. You know, I mean, I know with me personally, it's like I would like, you know, score a joint, good weed, and then, but by 2 weeks, a week and a half, I'm buying a pound. You know, whether to smoke it or deal it, whatever. And then in 3 weeks, it's like, you know, I can get a key and do this and do that. And then pretty soon, I'm bringing a trunk load of marijuana across the border. So there's a criminal aspect that we have that once you've been there, if you start dabbling again, it just sucks you in. You know, so I'm saying that somebody that has already tasted the evil fruit, if I'm just calling it that, it's that they can't just take a little tiny bite of the apple. It's like, let's eat this damn apple.
Scott, what about
So I'm torn on this in a big way. First off, it's like, I get it, brother. I mean, I have seen so many people get locked up over drugs that would be so horribly ironic to then see this new business sprout up and have a bunch of white entrepreneurs that are making
My man.
tons of money from this new business, and not the people that were affected by incarceration over drugs. So I really get that part in a major way. I've had so many people call me to ask me to come into that business, this legal business now, and I've turned them down because I'm still conflicted, and I'll tell you why. I smoked a lot of weed many, many years ago. I haven't smoked weed in about probably 20 years, except for one day when Snoop was on Starsky and Hutch. Couldn't say no to that one. I know how it affected me when I was in college. I almost failed out my first semester because I was getting high all the time and lying to myself and telling myself I can study high. So I saw how it affected me personally, but I've also seen how it affects people when they're coming home from incarceration. And I mean, for so many people, weed is no big deal. It's the only thing they're ever going to touch. But for an addict, and most of the people I've met in prison are addicts. My bother is not, though, it's a gateway drug. Like, I understand what Danny's saying, and I think he's right. My biggest issue is, like, you need to set the bar so high for yourself. You need to hustle hard. You need to work hard. You need to not be lazy. And those are not traits that weed usually instills in people. And so, for the most part, what I've seen over 15 years are people that come home and say, oh, I can casually smoke, and then they're not showing up to work, their alarm's not going off, they're showing up late, they're lazy, they're not working hard, they get fired, and what happens when you get fired and now you don't have money coming in, you go back to the way that you used to make money, now you're making money that way just because you had a weed problem, but now it's more than a weed problem. So to me, like, if we need people to come home, be hungry, be alert, be hustlers, be ambitious, like, to me, I just find weed, at least for myself, it was an ambition killer. And that's my biggest concern. So I'm torn.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank all of you so much, and thank you for this event. It's incredible. My name is Marina. I'm also a recovering addict, and I'm, in addition to that, a doctoral student at UC Irvine studying criminology. And the more I become involved in these issues and the more I study this stuff, the less faith I have in the system that exists now and its ability to change in the ways that it needs to change. I've gone from being a reformist to being an abolitionist in the 4 years that I've been in this program and working on these things. And so there's a lot of hope up here, and there's obviously been a lot of amazing work done by all of you making changes within the system that we have now. But I wanted to know from any of you, actually, if ultimately you believe that all the changes that are necessary to make can be made with the system that we have now.
Let me just say this. If you get to see that How to Survive, Survival Guide to Prison, I made some statements in there, right? And I said that there's no longer a justice system that we have. We have a deal-making system. It's like it's a winning and a losing. The district attorney, the minute you come before him, guilt, innocent, doesn't matter. It's like it comes out, let's make a deal. And you got 5 years, or you can plead guilty and we'll give you 6 months suspended and you'll have 1 strike or some kind of deal. And because since the 3-strike law came out, they took the power completely away from the judge. He's just there. And they gave it to the district attorney. So when you go to court, you're actually going against a stacked deck. You know, I had a good friend of mine that was busted for armed robbery, kidnap. And we beat it, and we spent about 30 grand beating it. And then the attorney came and said, hey, the judge is gonna dismiss it. And the DA wants to know if you have another 30 grand. because they're going to refile it. Or you can plead guilty. Now remember, this is an armed robbery kidnap. Or you can plead guilty to obstruction of justice and get 30 days Caltran. From an armed robbery kidnap to 30 days Caltran. And so we kind of said, well, shit, why didn't you tell us that at first? You know? And well, you know, that's the way it works. You know, so I got a nasty letter from the district attorney's office after they saw that and said that I'm standing on you know, that the DA does this and this and this, and the DA makes deals, that's all. You know, so the only way that we could absolutely just stop the system is for everybody that went to court, plead not guilty, and ask for a jury trial. And they would completely have to revamp the whole system. Because you're entitled to a speedy trial. That's the law. And if everybody pled not guilty and asked for, I'm probably gonna get another letter from the DA. And you gotta remember too that a lot of people, some people in this room, and don't want to change the system. Some people in this room are thinking, well, how come he gets to go to college and prison and I had to pay for it? Some people in this room are thinking, well, how can he get an education in prison? Shit, look what I had to do. I had to work 2 jobs and go to school. So somewhere along the line, it's like we all got to meet in the middle and say, wait a minute, we all deserve a chance. All of us. You know,
Yes, I would like to chime in on that issue. You know, there's always been a question about what can we do to reform the criminal justice system. That is a question that's been going on for a very long time. Look at your criminal justice system today. Do you honestly believe that we have the most just system in the world? Do you honestly believe that a system that says that we guarantee people due process, and once due process is administered, that the system is just? How could you justify a system that back in 1974, before I got locked up, you had over 300,000 people nationwide incarcerated. Now you have over 2.2 million. Something is definitely wrong with that system. The system is corrupt. Can you reform a corrupt system? No, you cannot. Only way to change a corrupt system, you must demolish it from top to bottom. Woo! And people ask why our young men and women are leaving prison worse than they were when they first went to prison. Then you have to look at what it is that the prison themselves are offering people. You have to understand that there's a vicious cycle going on in this country, to where prison has become an industry where it monopolizes on bodies. Your fathers, your mothers, your brothers, your sisters, and your relatives. In order to keep the penal system afloat and alive, your criminal justice system work in cahoots with the penal system. But I feel strongly that in order to make a change, you are the ones going to have to do that. One of the reasons why you have people today that are dismayed about the criminal justice system, you know, I want you to think where, let's indulge in a little politics right now. Let's indulge. When Hillary Clinton ran for office, many people felt for granted that she was going to be elected, correct? But do you remember the controversy during her elections where Bill Clinton went to certain communities and the community roared up against him because of what he was confronting the children of those that when he signed the anti-terrorist bill that sent their fathers and mothers to prison. And that those children grew up having to visit their parents in prison. But people felt that Hillary Clinton was going to make a difference. She probably would have made a difference compared to what we have now, the lesser of the two evils. However, we have to be a little more smart and tactful when dealing with politicians. Are they really working in the best interest of those in our communities? Are they working in the best interest of special interest group? We don't send politicians to prison to get rich. We sent them to serve our community. But after 2 to 3 years, they become millionaires. And they no longer cater to the interests of those in our community. And what we do, we become discouraged, dismayed, and we don't vote. And when we don't vote, we guarantee the individual that we are dissatisfied with, we guarantee him to be reelected in office, not serving our interests. But in order to change the criminal justice system, we're gonna have to collectively come together and make that change. We're gonna have to pinpoint the particulars to try to direct it, and knowing that the people that we elect and not the people that the Senate appoint to the federal courts are the ones that serve us, because look what we have now. We have a people that is not serving the best interests of people as a whole. So I feel strongly that the criminal justice system, it only using people as counterfeit in order to best the interests of industries.
I want to indulge in politics as well. I really believe that the driver of mass incarceration and the real villain in this system are the prosecutors, are the DAs. And in a county like LA County, when hundreds of thousands of people can come out and vote for the DAs, a couple thousand people show up. And people are elected in the 58 counties in California who don't at all represent any of the interests of the people in this room. And there has become a national movement and millions and tens of millions of dollars from progressive organizations and even some conservative organizations to knock out awful, racist prosecutors and put in fair people that are actually looking for justice. And in Chicago, the awful racist prosecutor was knocked out by Kim Foxx, and she's now the DA of Chicago. Same thing in Philadelphia with Larry Krasner. Same thing that just happened last month in San Antonio, Texas, where you have the people like those that are sitting in this room that are now the DAs of these huge cities. And right now, these same groups whose sole mission is to take out these horrible DAs have their sights focused in November of this year on San Diego County, Alameda County, Bay Area, Contra Costa County, Bay Area, Sacramento now after this police shooting in the backyard. And in 2020, so those 4 races here in California, so we could have a hugely progressive DA that's looking for justice here in California. Right now, you have George Gascon, who's the DA of San Francisco, who's been a great ally to us on many bills. You have Jeff Rosen in Santa Clara County, who has been better than most. But other than that, you really have, that's 2 out of 58. You have 56 that send a lot of people to prison, children, death penalty, everything. And we need to look and we need to hold our own DA here in LA County accountable. We have the first black female DA ever in LA County as our DA. She's a Christian. I think she's a good woman in her heart. But she's supported in this progressive county where 4 of her 5 bosses are Democrats. She supported the bill to speed up the death penalty. So is that in line with the voters of LA County? Is that in line with the ideals of the folks we have in this room? So we need to start holding our DAs accountable, start letting them know there's a mass of people in a movement that will knock their asses out of their jobs if they don't comply. And that's how you show real political power.
You know, when you talk about our system, we've got an 80% recidivism rate out of our prisons. So any industry that has like 80% failure would die. But it is such an economic base that it's like, that's why it stays. But we got 80%. So the only way, the only possible way, if you have somebody incarcerated, you've got to tell them to get into some kind of self-help program that will lead them out and help them when they're out. Because if you are in prison, coming out, you have an 80% chance of going back without some kind of support. I came out and went into Alcoholics Anonymous, all I knew. I was in a meeting with about 105 rednecks. And all they talked about was staying clean and staying sober. And I said, you know what? Maybe these cowboy hats got something going, you know, but basically they did. And some of them took me under their wing and took me to some meetings with a whole lot of Latinos, a whole lot of ethnic groups. Okay, so now I found my spot. But if I would have taken first appearances, I'd have left. I'd have been back in prison. So thank God for those support groups. Again, there's so many unbelievable programs that this guy's headed up that they can get in. My cousin right now is like, he just did 38 years. He's in the electrical union. And shit had got a brand new Lexus. Damn it. Yeah, he got a better car than I got. But so, with the support system, anything is possible. Con Diosito, anything is possible. And Diosito will give you that support system.
I think, so one of the things that one of my mentors told me, and as I was working with him, he told me, are you in this business to promote the status quo, or are you in this business to disrupt? Right, and he told me there's a lot of people that do not have a voice, Joe. And he goes, and no matter where you go with your education, there's a voice that you can provide for those that do not have a voice, right? And one of the things that I use the most is like, for some reason, I'm a fucking hustler, right? And I am in everybody's ear. With this Friday, we were at an event, and I was talking to the dean of the community college. He's gonna be heading up inmate prison programming and outside programming, and I'm like, so what are you gonna do? How can I help you? And what do you need me to do, right? You got sitting up here, right? A future counselor, a future administrator at a community college, a social worker, and a lawyer. But the thing is, what are you gonna do when you get to those positions? Are you just gonna get there, make some money, and be cool with your shit? Or are you gonna get there and be like, this is a voice that I bring. This is a perspective that I have that nobody else has, and why aren't you? But because there's a lot of conversations going on about helping a lot of people, but if you're not in those conversations, you might not get that help that you want. So to run away from it, I don't believe, at least for me, is what I'm gonna do, right? That's why I said I wanted to be a vice president at a community college, right? Because that motherfucker makes decisions that affects everybody in his area. I can help people as a counselor one-on-one, or am I an administrator, and help push policy in those realms.
This question's for Gary. I noticed a topic that you kept basing on was your family during your incarceration, and currently my fiance is serving a 18-year sentence, a life sentence, and he's on his 18th year of incarceration. So he does programming and he works his program, he gets involved with as many things as he can, and he's currently working under a TEDx program. He works for Project Hope, and he mentors people that recently come to prison. So my question to you, his family is not involved in his incarceration whatsoever. My family and I all are. So what is something that motivated you and kept that fire in your heart to stay positive and have a positive outlook while you're being incarcerated to having a positive future when you get out?
Well, when I went to prison, I didn't go to prison believing that I was gonna persevere. I didn't know whether I was gonna live the next 24 hours or 72 hours. Because we're talking about a young person, the youngest individual on death row in the United States, gone to prison in one of the worst prisons in the nation, whose chances were slim to none of making it in prison. Only ones that I could depend on at that time for moral support was my family. And I am honored, and even today, I feel that I have been blessed to have my family supporting me. I come from a very large family, matter of fact. My mother's siblings, you know how many siblings my mother had? 31 siblings. Come from a very large family. And they always, the saying was always that a family pray together, stay together. And my mother was there. She the one that was the rock in my life. When I went to prison, as I mentioned to you, an hour or so later, my mother was there. My mother visited me in prison every day because she was afraid that the day that she missed was going to be the day that they executed me. But I knew as time was going on that I had to be strong, not only for myself, but also for my mother. I also knew that the men that was around me, that they gave me their best. So my family wasn't only, you could say, that was out in society, but also had a family within prison. We're talking about men who did great things for me and never asked for anything in return. Those men that had hearts, those men that measured up when it was time, because when they saw me, they knew that this child wasn't going to be able to make it in prison unless they stand up as men in this prison. So they're the ones. And what I'm telling you is that despite the absence of his family, you there, your family there. And you have to lead by example and encourage him that despite everything that he's gone through, his family not there, but he got to understand this, that he have a family within you and yours. And that what you all do, hopefully it would inspire his family, someone in his family to step up. Matter of fact, you can even reach out to one of the family members. But in order for them to see any kind of change, he have to make change. He have to start with himself. And I always say that mothers that have children in prison, you got to give your child tough love. You got to let him know that you put up with his bull while he was free. In prison, you're not going to go through that. This is a time for him to get his act together. If he don't get his act together, you will not accept his phone calls. You will not visit him. You will not write him until he get his mind right. So I feel that by you being in his life, your family, that's the support that he needs. And eventually, the family gonna come around. Even if they don't, he can't afford to give up under no circumstances. All right? Be that for him morally and spiritually. All right?
Hello, my name is S18. I'm the youth ambassador for the Women's Shelter Long Beach. As my role is to empower and educate domestic violence survivors and victims. And I saw a lot of things from the guest speakers today, such as you, Mr. Terejo, and also you, Mr. Tyler, and Butterwick that left earlier. But I wanted to ask you, how can I improve as a person to empower others, just how you did right now? How can I improve? What suggestions can you offer me? to empower those that have gone through a lot of things in their life, such as me. I've seen a lot of things, experienced a lot of things from my father that he caused onto me, and I've empowered other communities in around LA County to speak out and to become better. What can you suggest me to do as a better empower?
I will go first, Daddy. This is what I used to do to young men that come to prison. Men who was lost, didn't know what they were going to do. I used to tell them first was that what you come to prison for, don't let it define you for the rest of your life. This is an opportunity for you to make change while you are here. Don't prove society that you was that horrible human being that the DA depicted of you in court. And I feel as an individual that's free, what you need to do is that you need to get engaged with the young people in the community. Bring them, like on outreach, bring them to visit prison, to let them know that this can be the result if you don't do what's right in life. Step up, be that, as I mentioned to you earlier, that individuals in prison was, be that surrogate father, be that big brother, be that mentor, because what you, by being that, investing in the young people, that's gonna help a great deal when they grow up, where they're the ones that can replace the DAs that Scott mentioned, the judges, the politicians that we elect in office. By you also being there and giving your best to them, that and inspire them and encourage them. So I feel though that we all have something to give back to the community. And I used to tell them, the young guys in prison, when your young brothers and sisters come, you need to sit down with them and talk to them and let them know that don't despair, because you're doing everything in your power to get out of prison, and that to encourage them to continue with their education. Without an education, it's hard to make it out here in society. When I went to prison, I was very young, semi-educated, but the men in prison, they're the one that made it possible by help educating me, where that way that they empowered me. They empowered me, and I feel that by you working with them in the community, you empowering the young people by leading by example. That's what you can do. Don't feel as though at the end of the day, you fail in your task because you haven't. Just pick yourself up the next day and just move on. Take on that challenge like many others are doing today. All right?
Thank you very much.
I had a question for Scott, but I guess he stepped out. Maybe one of you guys can answer the question. But how would we go about being a part of the ARC movement?
First of all, so anyone that is system affected or anyone in this type of field that wants to get involved, you're more than welcome. It comes from the heart. We have a lot of people that, as you mentioned with Scott's background with the Hollywood stuff and all that, we had to kind of like screen people out from the beginning. But if you come with good intentions, a good heart, we're located out there in downtown LA on the art district called The Row. You're more than welcome to come. You're more than welcome to show up. Come to orientation, find out more about us. But if you're really interested in doing something, you can start by acting now. What's your major, you don't mind me asking? Awesome. One of the most important key things that you're doing social work. That means you're giving back. That means you're embracing people. That means you're mentoring people. That means you're counseling people. And that's what the most important thing. You're setting the tone and example for the community, for yourself, and for your family. With those key qualities, you're more than welcome to come to ARC. And any one of you right here in the audience, more than welcome. So that's how you get involved. You start within. You start by leading by example in the community, and that's reflective of who you are. And and that's reflective of what ARC is. You're already embodying ARC.
You know, people always ask how to get involved, and everybody wants to make a difference, but sometimes the difference starts with you. You know, I know people that all they're doing is teaching kids how to read. You know, like after school, they have a class and kids go there and learn how to read or learn how to do math. And that's already making a difference. It's like some of us are able to make, I guess, a difference in a big scale, but it doesn't matter. It's like if you can help when I go to juvenile hall and you know, we talked to about 8 kids and 18 kids, and then maybe 2 years later, one of them, you know, say, hey, I got out, man, can you call me, can you, blah, blah. It's like, wow, they're already, you know, and so it's just anything you do makes a difference. You're the difference, you know, and you keep being the difference. And what happens is that life just starts getting better. And if you go into the criminal justice system, don't be a DA, okay?
All right, so I think we're going to end it there. As far as sort of that question about how can you contribute, I will say one thing to sort of my formerly incarcerated and system impacted friends and those of you who want to go into education and use education to make your life, you know, better. Here's what I would say, and I say this to everyone that's been on this panel, Joe, Irene, Adrian, do the research yourselves, right? Don't allow people who are not formally incarcerated and those who are not system impacted do research on you. You are capable of doing the research. And for too long, the people who wrote the papers and the people who created the science that all of these policies are based around were people who were not formally incarcerated and people who were not system impacted. So if you go to school, keep going to school. Get your master's, maybe do a doctorate, and start doing the research that can really help change things. And that's all I got. Thank you all for coming.